girl, you got me shook.
Hello and
from
welcome
the
back
way
to
your
Hindsight
body
is
looks.
50/50. I'm the
Got
host
me
J-Rob
riding
with my
nuts,
co-host
got me
D.O.R.G.
feeling like a rush.
Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a dreary day, but it's not ball-numbing cold, at least. I think it's
Yeah.
supposed to be 49. It's, you know, but spring's coming. You can tell it. I mean, it's just, the grass is getting green. I'm sure you've done some yard work. That you were doing that controlled burn or whatever. Was that the whole neighborhood that was doing that controlled burn?
No, so the neighbor behind me, Dana, he likes to do a controlled burn once a year because we get poison ivy, poison oak, and all that, and the thickets in the tree lines.
Yep.
And for him to get all of his property, it has to be right up next to mine, and kind of like a, I guess, inconvenience, if you want to call it that. I don't think it is, but I'm sure some people do. So he had just been like, "Hey, I want to do this. Do you have a problem with it? And if you don't, do you care if we just grab all of it so like my poison ivy doesn't spread into his area that he just cleaned, type of thing?" I was like, "Yeah, man, get it all." And then the area on the other side of his driveway, which is like probably an acre in size, that's actually the other neighbors, but that runs right up to his driveway. So we talked to them and we decided to burn it all. So I mean, I bet it was in diameter somewhere around 2.5 acre fire, but it wasn't all contiguous. I mean, it was all looped in one circle, but it wasn't
Right.
all on fire at the same time, and we controlled it. But it just works out really well because funny story, when I moved in, Dana's dogs were all over my yard. And he just like kind of said, "Yeah, they run up here." And I thought it was kind of odd, but I didn't care. And as I got to know him, it's just like he's got hunting dogs and he lets them run. And as long as they're not causing you harm, he doesn't care if they get a little bit of running time in that might be off the edge of his property. Well, years ago, Molly, his older one now, that she's a brown German short hair pointer, she ran down the road and a guy found her. He actually said he was throwing the ball in his yard playing fetch with his dog, and all of a sudden he saw a brown streak, and then this other dog brought the ball back. And he's like, "What the hell?" So he calls the number on there. Nobody picks up. So he takes the dog to the vet. The vet finally gets a hold of Dana because it's his dog. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm cooking dinner. I didn't even know she left." So then they end up meeting. This turns out to be a guy named Brett. And Brett and Dana have been friends ever since. Brett teaches hunting and like biology forestry at the University of LSU and is retiring in a couple weeks.
Wow.
And he is a professional certified forester. And so he not only like he goes on 250 hunts a year, but he also does like 4,000 acre burns are like a, average size burn for him.
Works
And
for
so,
LSU?
yeah, well, he does that there and he does the federal burns. So he's a
How does
hunting
he
teacher.
How does he live here?
Great question. I have no idea. He's from Illinois,
Okay.
does a lot of his hunts in Texas,
Okay.
teaches at the University of LSU, like in person, and then lives in Michigan. So
Well.
no idea. But I think this is his like final home.
Okay.
And so he is retiring from that and then becoming, or I guess his new gig will be just to do the burn stuff for, as he says, for the feds. So for the federal government, the large burns. And he just loves to burn shit. And so like I met him the other day, half the yard's on fire. And I see him walking up and I go, "So I heard you like to burn shit." He goes, "I absolutely fucking do." And it was just like we hit it off ever since then.
Oh,
And
that's
he
cool.
loves to burn, so he does it every year for free.
That's cool.
And I was
Well,
like, well, if I can get a controlled burn to get rid of all the poison oak, all the poison ivy, and the prickers, and it's just like a cool neighbor thing, I don't have to pay for it. I'm
sure.
100% in.
Oh, that's cool. Plus, you can burn a few leaves too.
Uh, all of them.
You were able to?
Yes, they burned all of. I mean, we didn't because I didn't know which day it was happening. I didn't have like the loose leaves in my yard cleaned out yet. But that enormous pile and everything, it's all burned.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did
So
you get
that
that?
was.
Did you get that leaf blower going?
Haven't used it yet.
Oh, you got to use that,
I
man.
I think you guys were still looking for an attachment for it.
Oh, I thought I got it. I'll check. I'd forgotten about that.
But
It's
anyways, I
there.
know that was a long story short. Brett's a really cool guy.
Nice.
I've got a great set of neighbors, and it seems like we all do things for each other, which is, you know, to me, the most ideal scenario. We've got Brett down the road who I know now because of the fire, and he does the controlled burns, and his daughter, who's a little bit older than our kids, but she comes over and goes sledding and stuff with the winter, and I had actually met her. I didn't know it was his daughter. Um, and Dana, whenever he needs me to check on something or look at something, get the mail when he's out of town, I do that. And he's ended up plowing my driveway and grading the end of my driveway where the road got messed up. And then the neighbors right next to them, they have a bunch of chickens. They've gone out of town twice, and I watch their chicken and get free eggs and all kinds of stuff out of that. And one day they just show up and hand us a dozen eggs, anyways. And it's just kind of a nice little neighborhood. And
Which neighbors are those that have the chickens? In what direction?
west. So if you were standing in my driveway facing the road,
Yeah.
and then Dana's driveway's to the left,
Yeah.
his driveway wraps around like a tree line and comes out to the road. That
Yeah.
tree line property, that their house is just back in there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, but it's just, I don't mean to like grind this into the dirt talking about it, but it's really nice because we came from a condo where we had a couple cool neighbors, but they were young. So it was like not cool in the fact of settling down in life, but more like I could have a bonfire and a beer with them. And then we had other neighbors who were very old, widowed or widowers, and they were cranky, and all they wanted to do was, jab you.
Yeah.
And so coming from that to this, where everyone seems to be very wholesome and nice, it's pretty cool.
That's nice. And then you're gonna have your brother's gonna be a neighbor
Yeah, I just hope
within
that
a couple
asshole
months.
doesn't ruin the dynamic. I'm
Well,
just
yeah,
kidding. No,
but
that'll be nice.
he's not an adjacent neighbor, but he's half mile away.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
but that'll still
m
be nice.
a half mile to me is a neighbor, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
I told them when they were at Easter when everybody was out, I said something to Jacob. I told him I went and saw his house, the new house that they're getting. I said, "I think that JJ could get on his scooter and in one or two pushes, he could go from Jacob's house all the way to your house."
100%.
Yeah.
Just obviously not the other way, but yeah.
Right. But hair on fire because it's predominantly downgrade.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
he'd have to get up enough speed to cover that, whatever it is, tenth of a mile of limestone or however long that transition is. But yeah, I
I'm
think he
not
could drive
kidding
one of those
though.
little scooters, from Jacob's house to your house without pushing only once
We've had
or
the
twice.
kids go from that last stop sign, which is pretty much at the bottom of the hill,
Yeah.
and without pushing, they are absolutely hauling ass. I can't imagine how fast I would shit my pants with full gear on riding a scooter down that hill. Like a razor scooter, not a motorized
Right.
scooter, but Yeah, I mean, they are hauling. They put their feet down, and I think it was JJ butterflied. It turned his feet out and his knees in,
Oh,
and it was just dragging his shoes. And he was like, I'm not kidding, maybe a quarter inch from just taking all the skin off of his knees. But his shoes were dragging the ground. And I mean, he shredded the inside. They are just hauling ass down that hill. It's unreal. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And those neighbors seem to be pretty nice there too. There's a guy named Sam that lives in that neighborhood, and he's he's retired, and he just likes to dink around and do things. Makes his own little type of art out of like wood and stuff, and just likes to use tools and mess around. And he's always been very helpful and nice too. So even people in that sub has been very kind. And actually, speaking of that sub and Jacob moving in, a family from Colorado just moved into that sub, and they have a son that is like 6 months younger than our youngest, and a daughter who's 6 months younger than our oldest. And they're like, "Oh my God, we're home every day. Please, if you guys ever want to hang out, we'll be here." So I think we'll have some more friends in the neighborhood.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know we didn't have spring cleanup on the list, but we started out talking about I mean, we had it down the list of things to talk about. So
No worries.
why don't we just continue talking about that just for a second? I've got some things to do that, it's like a domino thing for spring cleaning. I want to finish that trailer, okay? That I put a new deck on that trailer last year, that small utility trailer.
Yeah.
And I painted the frame and everything. And and put a new tire on it. It's seaworthy, man. It's that I hauled that blade home in it. That back blade I bought for the tractor. So I want to put side walls on it. You know, up the side of the frame and on the front, and build a gate for the back that I can lift out. So because I'm going to haul that mower from Jackson, that John Deere tractor, to your house. But I don't need the walls for that. What I need the walls for is if I want to haul wood, and I have a lot of firewood that I can bring you that you're welcome to. But I need sidewalls in that trailer to do it, and I've been going to do it for a while anyway. So that's once
Are
I
you
get
gonna
that,
build your own sidewalls?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
just out of deck boards. There's a metal frame there.
Yeah.
All I got to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
is tie into the frame. But yeah, and I just priced all the materials today. It's only going to be, I don't know, about 65 bucks to do the walls. So that'll be a good thing. But yeah, but it's just one of those things, it's like, I want to get that done. I've got a project in the basement I've been working on, replacing that sump. And I'm almost done. But, you got to finish those things so you can move on to the next one. But it's just done. It isn't going to be very long. I'm sitting here looking outside right now. I don't know how close you are to mowing, but we're getting close.
I've almost mowed 3 times this year, and all 3 times something happened.
Yeah,
Like the kids were able to play outside all day for the first time, so I didn't want to mow and spoil their time. The second time, I can't remember exactly what happened, but something prevented me from mowing. Um, and then the third time, we ended up having the controlled burn, and I was like, I'm not gonna throw loose leaves in the air while we've got this big of a fire going. Um,
right.
and so I was gonna mow this past week, and that didn't happen. So I'm ready to mow soon. But I did want to throw in one story. I'm not sure if I've told this before, and it's a short one, but it is about like the neighbor thing. Um, and spring cleanup just kind of reminded me of it, just because it's that time of year you do stuff. Well, when Melissa and I moved here, it was tipping towards the end of fall, starting to become winter, and so you start having the seasonal things come up, whether it be local things for Christmas, lighting of the tree type thing, like all kinds of stuff like that towards the end of the year. And
Right.
we went to one of those where Santa was going to be there with the fire department, all types of stuff, and I told you in the past that Dana's youngest comes over and plays with JJ a lot. And so she already knew me briefly, but we hadn't lived here that long. And we all went into town, and this was just one of those moments where I was like, oh, we're going to be good neighbors. And that kind of like set the tone for our relationship, as silly as it sounds. But um, we were at we were at this lighting ceremony, and there was a choir singing, and Dana's oldest was in the choir, and we're watching it, but he's standing over on one side, I'm standing over on another. We're not social friends yet, if that makes sense. Um, and his youngest is running around and can't find him. And she runs up and she grabs the back of my jacket and tugs on it. She's like, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I turn around and I look at her. She goes, Hi, Mr. Jared. And then took off running to her dad. And I was like, that's perfect. So now I know we dress alike too. This is really gonna work out. Like,
That's
and
funny.
I just thought that was so adorable.
Yeah,
Like it was just, I
yeah,
don't know.
it is.
Maybe that's just me, but it was one of those wholesome moments where it's like, and because I'm taller than the crowd, and her dad is extremely taller than the crowd, I was like, he's right over there. And I just kind of lifted her up a little bit, showed her where he was, and then she ran off, and the rest is history.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. No, it sounds like you guys are fitting in and loving it, and I'm assuming Melissa still loves it.
Yes. And it's tough because in the winter, um, we kind of, I don't know, got kicked in the teeth, if you want to call it that, because we got here in the end of fall, and it's like, we're outside bonfires every day. We don't have neighbors bitching about the smoke. Everyone seems friendly and nice. We like being outside. And then winter just hit us real hard, and we're kind of trapped inside. We don't see anybody. And it's like you lost that shiny new thing, kind of. We just sat there and it's like, boy, it's not much different. This kind of sucks. The only difference is we don't have cell service here. But as soon as it warmed up, everybody opened right back up. And that's the thing we'll have to figure out. I'm sure everyone struggles with it in colder weather places. And we can sled and all kinds of stuff. But when you're getting rain and slush and all that, it's just hard to get outside. And we're not in an area where there's a million things to go take kids to do. Like today, they're going to a gymnastics gym because that's like a supplemental income for that place. When they don't have gymnastics, they open it up to the kids to run around and play on. And it's just a few bucks an hour to take them, but there's not always something for them to do and all these places to go. And so the winter was pretty hard on us, and we'll have to keep figuring that out. But it was good to see these nice few weather days and watch how happy the boys were, how happy and smiley Melissa was. And I mean, we've already had like 5 bonfires this year and eaten outside twice, I think. And I
Well,
mean, cooked on the fire, eaten outside, not
and I
just had
mean,
food.
for a Michigan winter, this past one was pretty
Pretty mild.
mild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it took away the new aspect that the thing that made living here different is what disappears during the winter.
Yeah.
And so that was what was rough for the first year. I think every year it'll get a little bit easier, but it's just, you got to figure it out. And for me, I think one of the biggest things I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of those little heaters for the garage so I can heat the garage, and I'll just work out in the garage. And I may, if it gets warm enough, I may even just open up the garage door and keep that little diesel heater running and still be able to have fresh air and look outside, but, stay busy.
No, I get it. I'm with you. I'm with you. I don't want for things to do right now, but when everything's normal, I like to tinker and just
Yeah,
do
and I can only
anything.
sharpen my axe for so long, like
Sure. I get it.
so it's
No,
like
I get it.
winter, I'm sitting there going, "Okay,
I
here's
get
the
it.
inside activities. I'm done. Let's go back outside." And that's the thing I notice out here in the country the most is, I'll start fixing up one of the kids' toys, and then I'll see, a tire on the wagon's a little low and I pump it up, and then I decide to go rake leaves and pick up sticks, and you pick up the dog shit and all that, and you're just constantly moving. And I know we're hoping to tap the maple trees in this coming year, and um, just other things like that. You're constantly
I
almost
gotta tell you,
evolving in your choices outside.
I, you know, one of the neighbors, Brad, asked me. It's been, I don't know, more than a month ago, when we had a nice day. I mean, there was still patches of snow on the ground, but it was a nice day. It was probably in the 40s and it was sunny. And he asked me if I'd bring the tractor down and help him drag some stuff because he sold part of his property. He sold a piece of vacant land and he's getting his house ready to sell. He's moving. He's going to move to Manistee. He loves to fish and he loves to fish that area. So, and he's retired. So why not? But anyway, he asked me to come down and help him with the tractor and just move some heavy stuff. And I got that front bucket. So I did. And as I was leaving, he gave me, he just said, "Hey, he said, don't run off." He gave me a pint of, or a half pint of maple syrup that came from the maple trees on his property. And he made it.
And
It's damn good. It's
yeah,
really good.
I've
It's
heard
not
it's phenomenal. I just didn't know how much is wasted in the creation
a
of that
lot.
syrup. It's
If
90-10 apparently,
you boil it down a lot.
because it's almost all water. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
when you boil it down to get the sugar, I think it ends up being like 90-10 was the ratio my neighbors were saying. Um, but that's way cool that he did that. That reminds me, the Brett, the forester that I just met, he gets to hunt those nilgai I know I've talked to you about, and they're, I mean, enormous animals, and he gets to hunt those down in Texas. And he was telling me, he said, I hunt them. This is how many we usually take, and it's kind of a cool little trade off that they do. They go down there and hunt with students and stuff, and they kill a bunch of them, and then they quarter it and take the meat that they want, but like you don't take the back legs, you don't take certain things, right? And so what they do is the local zoo sends out a semi trailer, and they load up the semi trailer with these nil guys leftover parts, and they feed them to the big cats at the zoo. And
Okay.
so nothing gets wasted, and it's really cool. But um, about Stetler sharing that syrup with you, I was talking to him about it, and I was like, "Well, is Nilgai good eating?" He goes, "Oh, it's great eating." He goes, "I got about 1,000 pounds sitting in the freezer. I'll bring you some."
Elk?
No, Nilgai.
I don't know what that is.
So Nilgai is kind of like a antelope looking
Okay.
thing from
Okay.
India, and they were imported at once to control vegetation, and now they're more of a nuisance animal. They have no natural predator.
Do
You're
they have
talking
spiral horns?
I don't. They're not completely spiral, but they're slightly twisted. But they're. I mean, these things are.
I know what they are.
Yeah, they're like a thickness of a moose at maybe the height a little bit lower than an elk, but their skin is over an inch thick, like a rhino, and they have some of the highest endurance on the planet of any animal, and they run about 40 miles an hour. So as they were brought into the US and they started to become a nuisance here, instead of like, you've just got to control the population because they have no natural predator really. Mountain lions can kill babies, but that's about it. And so
They're big.
they, most of the time when they get shot, they either shake it off and they live just fine, or they die of infection. And so if you remember, for my wedding present, Melissa bought me a 458 hammer, which is a 458
Mhm.
SOCOM on steroids. That
Yep.
gun specifically was designed to kill that animal.
Okay.
So it's I
They
mean, it's a big mother.
they
It's,
have kind of a hump like a moose, and they're big through the
yes,
chest,
real
and they're
big, and their heart and lungs sit like 8 inches higher than deer
okay.
do.
But their horns are short, and that wasn't the horns I was thinking about, but it's kind of the antelope I was thinking about, and they're good size.
Yeah, it's almost like you could almost say like they've got to be an enormous cousin of like a wildebeest type thing. Do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get that at all?
yeah. I get it. No,
Because
I
they're
absolutely
huge
do.
though. I mean, they're great
Yeah,
big.
but their horns are kind of like a Rocky mountain goat. Not a bighorn, but the mountain goat. They're
No,
kind
but
of
they
short
do
and
the
straight.
like an outward in V. Like they're not twisted, they're not spiraled, but they almost bow out a little on the bottom and then come up to a point. But they are, I mean, those animals are awesome.
Five
And
feet, they can get up to 5 feet at the shoulder, and males weigh up to 635 pounds. So
yeah,
that's good size. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. So he's going to bring you some nilgai.
so he said,
That's nice. I wasn't. I was drifting, and I thought you had said elk, and I mean I've had elk. It is phenomenal.
I've had
I
elk at a restaurant where you hope it's elk. You
Well,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
but I mean I've had elk from my buddy Don going on his elk hunts,
Mm-hmm.
and brought me back some, and it's fantastic.
I think you shared maybe some jerky of that with me
Yeah,
from Don.
probably. Yeah. And then when we were out west a couple of years ago, um, when we were out west in South Dakota, Jacob had elk. I had it once, and Jacob had it elk a couple of times. Like he kept getting elk burgers, at
Yeah.
different places. It's just really good.
Well,
Oh,
and I had told both of my neighbors because they're both really big hunters. I mean, one
yeah,
of them hunts more than most people hunt in a lifetime in a year, and then
right.
the other one hunts, and I mean his family's very well off, so he's able to take time and go travel and hunt. Excuse me. And so both of them, I've said, like with Dana, I was like, you've plowed my driveway, graded my driveway. I was like, next all you gotta do is teach me to hunt and we'll call it even. And he just started laughing. He's like, we'll get there. And then Brett came over and I was like, wait, you're a hunting teacher? He's like, yeah. I was like, you ever think about teaching local? He's like, nope, just my kids when I'm done. And I looked at him, I go, well, if you ever feel like teaching your local idiot neighbor, let me know. Gun
Oh,
guy, don't know how to hunt. And he just started laughing. He's like, all right, we'll do.
that's cool.
So that's
You
yeah,
know,
I mean,
there's it is. It's cool that you got neighbors that you're getting along.
and we're
Great.
all they're the bridge, if that makes sense. So they're both older than me, but
Right.
they're mid 40s,
Oh, okay.
and so they're a little bit older than me, but not enough to where it's weird. But then they know the guys that are the same age or even a little bit older than them, and so it's like they're almost kind of not just we're all friends together, but my introduction to the senior community that I don't know around here as well, like the good old boys. You know what I mean?
I met Dana's dad when you guys were just looking at the house, and he seemed like a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's really cool.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys though that can cut off his sentence like real short to where you feel stupid when you're talking. Like he'll just say stuff like one word answers sometimes. Hey, our Grandpa Sawyer was like that, where it's like you can have a good conversation with him, but then sometimes you say something, he says one word back, and you're like, I don't know why, but I feel like an idiot right now. Like
Mm. That's
it's
funny.
just it's funny like that. But no, he's
That's
a very
funny.
good guy. They're all very nice, wholesome people, and
Good.
I also don't mind having a pediatric surgeon behind me,
Right.
in case the kids
Right.
ever were in America. I told Melissa, I go, if we were ever waiting for an ambulance, it's like, not saying she could do much, but I guarantee you she can stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll do that.
Melissa's a nurse too.
Yeah, doesn't hurt at all. So we've got a Horus, jeez, a forest,
A
uh,
horist. What
yes,
does a horist do?
a
Study
professional
study
forester,
horrors?
forestry service, and we've got a professional hunter in the same, as
That's
well as a
funny.
nurse, as well as a pediatric surgeon, all grouped up together. So it's pretty good around here. I'm not too mad, and having Jacob and Jen close will be real nice. I want our kids to know each other. I think that was something all three of us boys talked about, and I think in the ideal world, Joe would move this way, but I think there's some things that stop him from that. But I do think all three of us wanted our kids to not just know who their cousins were, but be friends with them and hang out because that was something we didn't get. I mean, on your side of the family, we didn't have a cousin forever. And then we had one, and it was a unique circumstance. And then on the other side of the family, they were just so far away that we never really saw them.
Unique circumstances being kind.
Well,
you're,
that's me,
you're
Mr.
Mr.
Kind.
Kindness. So
Yeah.
anyway, there's a couple of things. To move on to a
Yeah.
couple of current events, fairly current events. The first one is OJ, and OJ passed away this week, and he had cancer. He was 76. OJ Simpson. Now, I know you didn't see OJ play. Have you watched highlights of OJ Simpson?
Yes.
I kid you not. I mean, this guy went to a junior college, obviously, to build up his grades. He ended up going to USC, won the Heisman Trophy. They won a national championship. I think when he started playing football, he was a track guy on the football field because he was just stupid fast, which is weird in of itself because there's a number of stories out there. One is that he was extremely pigeon-toed and that his mother made him wear shoes on the wrong feet when he was an infant and a toddler to try and get his feet from toeing in. Interesting. I just got a text from our buddy Don Marsh.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he would, she would make him wear these shoes on the wrong feet to try and get his toes to go straight forward. And I also heard that he had rickets as a child, which can cause you to have bow legs, and he had severe bow legs. Regardless of what he had as a child, I mean, this guy was, we forget about this because of I have no doubt that he killed his ex-wife and Ron Goldman. He was acquitted in a criminal court, but convicted in a civil court. And I think that there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of blame on the prosecution, on the police force, on a lot of different things that were mishandled. Maybe even the judge. I don't know. But anyway, I believe that he killed his ex-wife Nicole and her boyfriend Ron Goldman. I believe he killed them both.
But the glove
That,
didn't fit.
that I know. Yeah. But that being said, the forget about the travesty of that tragedy.
Him as a football player, not him as a person.
Amazing. And I mean, again, I think when he first was at USC, he was a track guy on the football field. When he got to the Bills, and he was great with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, phenomenal. 2,000 yards in a season. Just amazing. He was a tough guy too. Now, OJ wasn't a great actor. He made a lot of money. He was like the spokesperson for Hertz Rent-A-Car.
Was he in Naked Gun?
He was. He was in, he got parts in shows, and usually he was in he was in Naked Gun. And he was a recurring character in Naked Gun. But it was all based on his athletic prowess. I'm just here to tell you, and for those who don't know, and you hear about OJ as the tragic story of this guy who at least was accused of killing his wife, and then later on he got put in prison for breaking into some memorabilia storage place, and he says was trying to get back memorabilia that had been stolen from him.
I think
But
he got
anyway,
pulled over with a trunk load of guns too.
yeah, and he went to prison for it. He served time for it, so they found him guilty too. Anyway, forgetting all that, obviously he turned into an asshole or maybe he was the whole time and was just hiding it from us. The guy was one hell of a football player. And if you haven't seen him play, and again, the era is different.
Well, that's it. So you don't get to feel the electricity of what he brought to the game because you're watching a highlight, right? Like we can still get pumped up from highlights, but of that era, it is going to be of a certain quality and all that. But you don't feel the. I'm a much bigger believer in what momentum and swagger did back in the day versus now. Not that it doesn't carry. I think something like March Madness shows the example of momentum, but back in the day, because social media and everything wasn't what it was, communication wasn't as open as it is, the thought you had of someone, the stories you were told about them built up that scenario. So then when it was game time, there were certain sets of fear, there were certain expectations, and it was all built up, and characters like him would have this electricity around them while you're waiting to happen. I think the thing I could compare it most to it, that I would be able to understand, is someone like Barry Sanders, where they are sitting there and they might get tackled for a 2-yard loss, tackled for a 1-yard gain, all that over and over. And everyone's holding their breath going, we know he's going to break it. When? And you're waiting for that electricity. And I think some of that's gone in the modern sport because we're flooded with so much information all the time. But there's no doubt he was a phenomenal athlete.
Amazing.
But as someone who can't appreciate that electricity, to me, and I know this is going to sound bad, I know it's going to sound, he is a less talented or poor man's version of like a Gale Sayers to me. And I thought Gale Sayers was phenomenal, but like if I had to choose between the two all day, I'd take Gale, not OJ. And I know OJ was really good, but his track style, even kind of the era of like helmet and all that, it just, he was that, but to me, just not quite as good.
Well, I saw him play, and I didn't just depend on highlights. And I mean, and it's fair to have differing opinions.
Yeah.
I think Gale Sayers could play in any era. I think OJ could too. OJ was, and again, like I said, when I saw him at USC, it was student body left, student body right. That was their famous play. It was like the Green Bay Power sweep. And they've got linemen who can pull. And by God, lots of times, if he got to the corner, history. I mean, it's like Nick Davis at Manchester. He gets to the edge. There ain't anybody on that field going to catch that guy.
Well, that's kind of how I thought Gale Sayers was, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But OJ, even between the tackles, Gale Sayers always said he needed 18 inches of daylight. I think OJ was less than that, and he could accelerate so fast. And then either one of them, I think they're very similar. I do think Sayers was a tougher player, and probably a better player with a shorter career. But either one of them in the open field, just dangerous. But again,
well, they brought power, and I mean, not to say he didn't have any, but they brought, to me, a power and grit that, again, in another great all-time back, you didn't get to see all the time out of like an Eric Dickerson. Like that dude could shrug off hits and stuff, but he was a straight upright runner, and it's like when he got to the outside, he was gone. But when you watch highlights of OJ and highlights of Gale Sayers, you get to see a lot more of that tough grittiness in the middle of the field.
Yeah. Again, my point being is that if you haven't, again, everybody knows the criminal O.J. Simpson. Everybody's heard of him. The Bronco chase, if you didn't watch it live.
I mean, Ford should still be paying him for that advertisement.
Yeah. And so everybody knows about that. But you should know about what a player he was, because he, in my opinion, he was a tremendous player.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there like that. Like, regardless on your feelings of Michael Jackson, his music was what his music was.
Yep.
So no, I completely appreciate that. And again, if he's somehow magically 100% innocent, then, he got dealt a rough card. But in reality, where I think we all believe that he's guilty, I think you're on the same page as me.
Yeah.
Um, I boy, to me, he really is proof that karma's a bitch. I mean, you lose
Yeah.
all faith, all respectability in the public eye. You lose your voice
Oh
when you're
yeah.
a social pariah, and you lose your voice. Nobody wants to even listen to your bullshit. And then you get a disease that slowly rots your body until you die. What better way for some dude who's gotten away with some evil shit?
The other
You took away the two things he cared about.
Yeah. The other thing we need to talk about is, and we need to give credit to UConn, that winning. That's their second national title. It's the first time it's been done since around 2000, I think. And there's a lot of people think, depending on who comes back, they'll do it again. Now, Dan Hurley is their coach. His brother is Bobby Hurley. I know that Bobby Hurley, who's the head coach at Arizona State now, played for Krzyzewski at Duke, and I believe I'm quite sure he played on a national championship team. I think I can't remember about Danny, but UConn. I was reading this stat. The average margin of victory in the tournament was like 23 points a game. They ended up stretching it out against Purdue and won by 15, I think. It was in the teens. I didn't watch the game. I don't. It's like I keep up with the sport peripherally, but I very rarely. I can tell you one thing for sure. I did not watch a college basketball game from beginning to end this year. I know I didn't. But you have to give credit to UConn. Nobody's done that in a while, and a lot of people think they may do it again. I do remember when I was teasing you about them making T-shirts back when Jim Calhoun was their coach, and they were in the finals, and I said they were wearing T-shirts that said "You can, and you
Yeah,
were.
you can.
And I was trying to get you to believe that they were making those shirts, and you
I
you
mean,
never
they
you
should.
never you never bought. They should have. You never bought it though.
Well,
But
speaking of the tournament, though, how about that Golke kid?
oh God, that was
I
amazing.
mean, when he popped off for like 2 games, I think he hit the most threes over the course of 2 games in tournament history. But in that game against Kentucky, he opened up with 9 3-pointers in the first half, and I mean, like Steph Curry range and
And
off
dude,
balance, and it was like,
dude,
what the hell?
last year he was playing at Hillsdale College.
Yeah, must have got really good at shooting.
No, that was cool. And again, I did watch some of the tournament. I didn't watch it like I used to take off the first 2 days of work. The first 2 days of the tournament that are on Thursday and Friday where there's games on all day, I would take those days off.
Yeah,
Like,
I would either take them off or go like extended, like a half day, and go to B Dubs for lunch.
right. But I hadn't much. Now I did start paying attention because I've seen Purdue, and they're Big Ten, so I'm a Big Ten guy. And this Edey guy, he's very polarizing. Some people love him and some people hate him. I'm just going to say this. I think he won the Naismith Player of the Year. He carried Purdue. They scored 60 points against UConn. He had 37. And it's not because he's a ball hog. He's just a man. I saw him shake hands with Shaq pregame. Shaq looked short. You don't see that very often. Now I think Shaq's 7 feet, so that means Edey must be 7'4". The only thing I want to say about that is it needs to be, and I think it needs to be acknowledged. I saw this guy 2 years ago. He has made monumental progress. I mean, he's developed his hands. He's got softer hands. He's got a nice little hook shot. He even shoots. He looks like a good free throw shooter. He has good form. You can just tell this kid's put in the work.
Well, you
And
can see it just in his photos and his body.
yeah.
He went from a beanpole that has, skin attached to him that now he looks like an athlete. I mean, he's built up his shoulders, he's built up his arms, and I bet he's got a lot more control and coordination of the ball now.
Oh, Jared, it shows. I mean, I don't have anything recorded. I'm sure you can find those highlights. It's night and day difference. The guy looks at home on
Have
the
you seen
basketball
him
court.
sitting in the stool on the side of the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
It looks like an adult at a child's tea party. It is
He's a big
hilarious.
dude.
Yeah.
And
And he
again,
is 7'4", by the way, 7'4", 300 pounds.
not everybody sold on him. And I'm not sure I blame him.
Well, you've had too many like Hashim Thabits and things like that come throughout the year. Even people like Greg Oden, who are of good size and stature, but then injury prone. And I, as much as he wasn't the player I enjoyed watching, the only one I remember, at least in my era, being pretty good was Yao, who is like of that height. Yao Ming was pretty good. I'm not saying he was amongst the greats or anything like that, but there's been a lot of people who just fizzled out, and Yao was dominant throughout the years of his career. He wasn't, in my opinion, anything like Shaq, but of those people 7 feet plus that are a lot skinnier and lankier, it doesn't seem that many have panned out. It's almost like there's like a theoretical glass ceiling at like 6'11", and after that we're just not coordinated and fast anymore.
I think that the game has changed so much that old school big men they're subs in the league now.
You can't stay in the game
because guys, even the big men, even Embiid, they pop out and shoot threes. They're a lot more concerned with that. Jobert.
And then you got the guy, the Untekempo, or I don't even know how to say
the
his
Greek
name.
freak.
Yeah.
Well, that guy, I've got a personal vendetta over him. I never saw a guy walk as much in my life. I mean, that guy might as well be at the airport, for God's sake. He takes 4 steps and backs in and takes 4 steps every time he catches the ball in the post. And
I don't
they don't
disagree with
call
being
it.
disgusted with it,
They don't
but
call it.
if you're in a league where they're not going to call it,
That's
you
exactly
should do it.
you're 100% right. But again, things like that are what steer me away from watching. It's like I'll tell you this, because there was such a buzz about this Caitlin Clark or whatever from Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew Jacob was watching some of those, as they got deep in the tournament, he was watching some of their games, and he was trying to get Juliana to watch. Because he's trying to get her interested in
I'm
basketball.
not sure that's not a boy.
Well, that's fair. But I mean, I say this again, and I mean it. The women's game is different than the men's game for sure. It's played a lot closer to the floor, and the athleticism isn't there. But their fundamentals they're a lot better than men's in my view.
Yes. And that's where I think girls could make money and they don't. Stop trying to go in the WNBA. It's not flashy enough. People aren't interested. Women make up 60% of the population, and yet you still don't have fans because even women don't watch it. But your fundamentals are incredibly sound. Your shooting skill is incredibly consistent.
Absolutely.
If you took young men, middle school to high school, and ran camps, professional camps where you're getting paid mega dollars, and forced them fundamentals only, no flashy basketball, no speed, fundamentals only, you'd make them so much better and you'd make money hand over fist before those guys went to college and went to the NBA.
Yeah, I marvel at their fundamentals. They make their free throws. They move their feet on defense. It might not be fast enough to get the job done, but they
Well,
played
it's
defense.
the same old thing of what you give to one, you take from the other. It's like
And you
being ambidextrous. Since they can't haul ass, they focus on the thing they can do. Well, guys are hauling ass and they don't focus on the fundamentals. I mean, it's
they make mid-range jumpers. I
yes.
mean, they do. They're way more fundamentally sound.
Like I don't think there's many girls that are going to be any decent guys in basketball,
Right.
but there's a lot of them that beat us in horse.
Oh, for sure. So anyway, after all that, then we had Tigers opening day, which they actually got the game in. It was cold, but they got the game in, and the Tigers won.
I didn't watch. I'm not a
I didn't.
baseball
I
guy.
didn't either, and I'm not either. But opening day, I will tell you, I have been in Detroit on business on Tigers opening day. It's a big deal. It's like St. Patrick's Day in Detroit or Chicago. It's a big deal. I mean, the town's just buzzing, and that is cool. And I know that lots of people, I mean, really look forward to Tigers opening day. And that's great. I mean, I'm glad that baseball started. I'm with you. I don't watch a lot of it. And and I used to, again, when I was a kid, that's what you could watch. And
For
there were
me, it's
two
go ahead.
reasons. Number one, that was about the only thing on, because I remember they would televise about 40 Tigers games a year on local TV. And the second thing is my dad wanted to watch it, so that's what I got to watch.
That's fair. I think the thing is, I mean, obviously it's slow. It can be slower. There are times where it's exciting, but it can be slower, and so I lose interest, especially when
Oh yeah.
I grew up. We watched, any football game available, whether it was high school, college, Division II college, whatever was available, it was always on our TV. And so non-contact and all that wasn't as interesting to me. Um, but there's the other thing that kind of gets to me about baseball is the highlights you see, and I'm not talking about the double plays and the pickles and all the hidden ball trick, all that stuff. That stuff's really cool. Or even when you see an outfielder throw it from the wall all the way to the catcher, it's incredible. But when you see the negative highlights with the umpires, it's very much to me like the NBA. In the NBA, they do a lot of cool things, but I can't stand when all the highlights have traveling in them, and it just looks stupid to me. And
Right.
when I watch an umpire be completely unreasonable,
Yeah.
and he's never held accountable because their union, no fines, no suspension, like this Angel Hernandez dude.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
And it's just like we're watching a tyrant get away with, and we're doing nothing, and it's on national TV. That pushes me further away from the sport. I watched
I
I
can see
watched a
how it would.
spring game, and I can't tell you the team, so I'm sure somebody will know who it is. But I watched the spring game, and it had an umpire who I believe they were saying was a young umpire. I don't know if he was in his first pro game or not, but I think spring games are like tryouts for umpires, from what it sounded like. So he was in a big game that he's not normally part of, and pitcher throws a ball and it gets away, and so the catcher reaches back, sticks his hand back for the umpire to put a new ball in his hand, and the ump throws it back to the pitcher instead of putting it in the catcher's glove. Now, we all know pitchers can be weird, so I don't know if he looked at the ball and was like, nah, not this ball, or if he just was OCD or had a way of, superstition, and he threw the ball back because he didn't want that ball. He wanted one from his catcher, I think. So he looked at it, shook his head, threw the ball back. And so the catcher sticks his glove back again. And then he sees the shadow of the ump stand up to throw the ball to the pitcher. So he puts his glove down, right? And the ump dropped the ball. He was standing just like he was going to throw it. And then he dropped it above the guy's glove. And the guy had put his glove down at the perfect time. and the ball hit the ground, the ump ejected the catcher. And the guy goes, I thought you were throwing it to him. I can't even see you. You're behind me. How would I know how to do that? And I mean, all of this is on record. You can see it. And the ump's like, no, there's no way. That's bullshit. And he goes, I've been playing professional baseball for 9 years, and this is the first time I've been thrown out. And it's a spring game. And he just walked off the field. And the fact that the ump, or at least the head ump, the judge, can't come over and go, wait. This was a misunderstanding. We made a mistake, and reinstate the player to the game. The fact that we're just going to deal with that mistake like there's no possible way we could fix it. That's absurd to me.
It is. When you told that story, you reminded me of one I have to tell. And I played it in this game. I was in this game. In Jackson, Michigan, there's some I haven't been there in a long time. There were some really nice ball diamonds. I mean, they were professionally styled ball diamonds for playing recreation softball on. And I played slow pitch for a lot of years in Jackson. And
what do you mean? Like as
pitch,
an adult?
Yes. Rec softball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And different guys, that, I mean, there were some guys that I went to school with that were older than me. There were, just guys that they worked with, and somehow I ended up on this team. It was Vandercook Ace Hardware. That was the team that I played on the longest. So anyway,
Nice.
we had this pitcher, because you had like a 15-foot arc limit on slow pitch. And I mean, this dude was odd as hell. His name was Tom Bordeaux, and he wore black horn-rimmed glasses. He had a beard when nobody had beards. And I mean, he had a ZZ Top beard.
So he was like Wild Thing, but
and
just
all
not
he did was pitch. All he did was pitch. And he would test the limits of the arc. I mean,
like any good pitcher should.
Yes. But he was a very effective pitcher, but didn't say shit if he had a mouthful. I mean, he was extremely, and a nice guy, perfect pitcher, fielded the position well, could hit a little bit now and then, didn't hurt you, but, because slow pitch, the pitcher has to bat, he's just another player. So anyway, we're at Sharp Park at these very nice diamonds. And that's all, chain link fence and dugouts and all this stuff. And the press box, again, they're softball diamonds. So the screen's not 100 feet back like it is in baseball. It's, 20 feet behind the plate, or I don't know the distance, but it's not very far.
It's like a little league diamond.
Yeah. And there's a press box where sometimes they would actually announce games, and it was a nice press box. So Bordeaux, a guy, and I'm playing first base, and Bordeaux pitches the ball, and the guy yanks it foul, and it goes in the dirt. And our third baseman picked it up, and he threw it to Bordeaux. Well, Bordeaux looked at the ball, and then he called timeout. He stepped to the side, and he lobbed the ball to the catcher. He wanted a new softball. Well, the umpire looked at the softball, looked at it, and he threw it back to Bordeaux.
Get the fuck out of here. That's not your call.
Well, wait a minute. The best part is this. Bordeaux, who doesn't say anything.
Threw it over the fence.
He threw it over the press box.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
I love that. He lobbed it like he was doing a slow pitch and lobbed it completely out of the ballpark.
Good. Did he get ejected?
No.
Good.
No. They called it a ball.
Now it's not here. Give me a new one.
They called it a ball, and I mean, everybody was laughing. I think the umpire even laughed, and nothing was said. He called it a ball, but and Bordeaux got a new song.
I mean, but he's right though. I love that. If I was a professional pitcher and something happened like that with a real umpire, I would hope that my third baseman would have even my first, but let's just say my third baseman, because I'm a lefty, would know what I wanted. And it's like I'd take that ball and toss it over to him. And it's like, throw that bitch in the stands. Like, I'm not gonna chuck it because I'll get ejected. You go ahead and give it to a fan in the stands. You can't get ejected for that. So I can get a new ball. Like, that stuff is
I
good for that guy though.
I honestly, and I mean, I'm in the game. It's a live game. I'm in the game, and it's
I know
it
for
was so
sure if that's
so
me and
funny.
my buddies, the next time we're at that park, all of us are trying to see if we can throw a softball over that. Like
I
it's a
mean,
competition now.
dude, and he did it like a pitcher, like a slow pitch pitcher. He used the same motion and everything, and lobbed it over top of the press box and out of the park.
That's awesome.
I was dying.
But I love that the guy who doesn't have to talk shit also has stones.
Oh,
You know?
big time. Oh
It's
yeah,
like, oh,
and
you're
he
gonna
was
fuck with me?
pissed.
Nah.
We used to always hang out at this bar called Woody's Brass Rail. We'd go there after games because it was not very far from Ellisharp Park. And as a team, most of the team would go to Woody's Brass Rail and we'd drink beer and bullshit, have a good time. And Bordeaux would go, but he'd never talk. I don't think that night he bought a drink. Everybody.
For sure.
And people would hear about what happened, and other people were buying him drinks.
You guys should have made him a T-shirt where it was like
Oh,
a pitcher's arm palm to the sky and a ball floating over the press box.
but he was still pissed. I mean, he was still pissed at that ump for doing that.
I mean, I can only
Dude,
imagine. That
it
type
was
of shit
just
would piss me off.
being involved in that in real time. I will never ever forget it. I just thought it was funnier now.
Oh, I'd have been sitting down rolling even if I was in the field to play.
We the draft is coming up. They got to change subjects here real quick, and this one won't take long. The NFL draft is coming up. I look forward to that. It's 2 weeks away. In fact, 2 weeks from yesterday. And the Lions, they don't pick till 29th.
And where's it at?
It's in Detroit.
That's what I thought. I just wasn't
Yeah,
100% sure.
it's in Detroit. So, that's a big deal. I'm sure we'll have some podcast topics over the draft
You and Alan should go.
well, I don't think we're.
Tell him to
But
come up and you guys could go to the first day of the draft.
yeah, it's only $2,500 flight.
I mean, he's retired. I don't think
I know.
$2,500 burn a hole.
I know. But yeah, so we got the draft coming up. Now, I told you the other day we were sitting around and there's this one station on Dish, I think it's called Pop TV. And your mom watches it a lot. They have shows like Criminal Minds that show ER. They just have a lot of that. And then they have some classic older movies. And they usually run those on weekends. So last weekend, I just happened to, I turned the TV on and it was on that station. And that movie Notting Hill was on. Now, I believe it's 1999. It's Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. It's a romantic comedy. I don't think it's a chick flick. Lots of people would say it is, but I just think it's a funny movie. I think
It's
Grant
tough
is.
for Hugh Grant movies to be a chick flick, though, because of his style of humor. They end up being too much of a comedy and a lot less like sappy. Even the sappy moments are filled with enough humor for guys.
Yeah, I think so. And again, as good as cute as the story is, and it is entertaining. I mean, Julia Roberts is a big time movie star who's traveling to England, and she meets him and they start liking each other, and he doesn't know how to deal with it, and she doesn't know how to deal with it either because she's got a boyfriend she's trying to get rid of.
And as a non-reporter, he has to interview her in the worst interview of all time.
And to me, the key to that movie, as good as Hugh Grant and Julie Roberts are,
Oh,
and I
his
think they're both
roommate,
good,
Spike.
Spike.
Oh
And
my.
and you know what? Not only Spike, but the other supporting characters are really good in that show, and I don't
No,
even
the
know their
family
names.
is perfect. The
Yeah.
the family in general is perfect, but Spike,
He is
I mean, not only is he funny and grotesque, but to anyone who hasn't seen the movie but potentially has seen another, he is the kicker from
in
The
the
Replacements.
Replacements. Yes.
And he is the same type of skeezy son of a bitch in this movie. And it's
Oh,
so good.
he is, I mean, he is hilarious. And he steals the show. I just, but again, if you've never seen that movie, to all guys out there, don't be afraid of it. It is a
No, it's
funny
hilarious.
movie. It is a very funny movie. Now, almost 25 years old.
But it's also young Julia Roberts where, like,
Yes.
she's very cute, not as bitchy looking. But they even kinda make fun of her for that in that
I would
movie
agree with
of
that.
being
I would
bitchy.
agree with that. But again,
Um,
she is a mega star, so she can't go anywhere without being mobbed, and she's huge in England. So, she everything she does is going to be discovered or manufactured that she did something worse. So because the paparazzi's always following her around and all these things, it's just I just thought it was an entertaining
well, and
movie.
there's, like, a scene where, like, I think she goes to see Hugh Grant, and she opens the door, and Spike is at the front door, and he's in his underwear, like, whitey tighties,
Yes,
with a cigarette in his mouth,
and an ass
and
cheek hanging out.
yeah, and they have a brief exchange, and she's getting ready to leave, and he goes, "Cheers," and he shakes his junk at her. Like, it's just like, "What are you doing?" He, like, just grabs a hold of it all and jiggles it up and down and goes, "Cheers." It's like, "Okay." And Spike's girlfriend, who's part of the family,
Yeah,
is, I mean, she's great too. They
yes,
play off of each other.
yes.
The probably my favorite thing about that movie is that they play off of each other like a smart ass close knit family does in real life.
It's very true. There is a lot of sarcasm. Even when they're sitting around at this restaurant, and I can't remember. I can't remember if it's a restaurant, if one of the family guys has cooked dinner. But anyway, all of them together for this big meal, and then they have these brownies for dessert. Well, there's one brownie left, and so they decide that they're going to go around the room, and whoever has the saddest story gets the brownie.
Yes.
And so and so everybody tells these sad stories. Hugh Grant's is terrible. I mean sad. And then it gets to Julia Roberts, and she's talking about how, she's always worried, and when you get to be in your 30s, you start wondering, are they still going to want me to play these romantic parts, and they don't want that person anymore, and you can't, you're not 25 anymore, and all that. She gives this big, long-winded story about how sad it is to be at this point in her career. And then there's this dead silence for just, 2 or 3 seconds. And the head of the family goes, "That's just bullshit."
Yeah. Because I mean, she does paint a
Yeah.
sad picture, but it's
Oh,
like,
she does.
"Oh, are you sad with your millions?
Yeah.
Sorry."
Yeah. It's all bullshit. I think, I do think that it's a movie like that some guys, and I don't want to stereotype, but some guys and maybe younger guys would be afraid of watching it because it's a 25-year-old movie and it's Hugh Grant and Julie Roberts.
Well, the only
Trust
thing I'd
me.
say to the guys out there like that, especially if you have a significant other, is it's like, one, there's absolutely no reason to be worried about watching something like that. Enjoy what you like. But two, you might notice a change. Like if you watch more of those quote unquote romantic comedies where you're in a good mood and potentially your significant other's watching it with you in a good mood and you have a good laugh, after watching movies like that, just seems like everybody gets along a little bit better because we all got that laugh today.
You know, there's been several movies that are similar to this, uh, in that, as far as that kind of genre. Um, we've talked about As Good as It Gets on the
Yeah.
podcast before. It's like that.
Family Stone,
Family Stone, very good. Yes. What's the one with
Love Actually,
you like that one? That is a good movie. The the one with Jack Nicholson and Diane Keaton.
You've Got
Um,
Mail.
nope.
No,
I'm trying to. He's like a record producer and she's a writer. Um, I
I
can't.
can't believe. Let me look it up.
It's the one where he's in Paris and he goes. It starts snowing and he goes, "Look who gets to be the girl."
Yeah. Yeah, and he like has a heart attack or something
Yes.
when they're getting ready to
Yes.
bang.
Yes. Let's see. Diane Keaton. I'm looking it up now.
Something's got to give.
There you go. Good for you. And again, it's like that. There are funny parts in that movie. Yes, it's
She's phenomenal at
a
that role,
love
though. I mean,
story.
it's good. Like, I would say this as far as the. Hold on 1 second. My dog's barking. Sorry. So, anyways, as far as that role of the, I guess, most senior family member in that role, um, Diane Keaton to me is the equivalent in that role as Jack Nicholson is on the other side.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
as well as he plays those roles in different movies,
yeah.
as good as it gets, all that stuff, she is perfect in that role in Family Stone, in Something's Gotta Give. I mean, she just I don't know what it is. It's like the
No, she's
charisma
very
about
good.
her. She
She's a
brings
good
it.
actor. She's a good actor, actress, whatever. I think everybody's called actor now, but yeah, she's very good. But again, you would look at those movies and you'd think, "Oh, it's a chick flick." No, it's not. It's just not. It's a romantic comedy that has really funny parts in it. As Good as It Gets is one of my all-time favorite
Well, as
movies.
good as it gets is a perfect example to explain about why it's not a chick flick. It's like, yes, it's a love story. Yes, it's a long odds love story. But the whole time, it's a chauvinistic male without a filter speaking his mind, as well as in the, most outdated fashion, making fun of and picking at a gay guy.
He's he's borderline psychotic.
Yeah. But it's like the things you want to say when you're mad and you're in the
Yeah,
shower and you're like,
he
I
just
should have
says
said
them.
this. He just says it. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes out of his mouth. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, Notting Hill. I think it's 1999. If it's one of those, yeah, um, it's a cuddle on the couch movie. It's a rainy day movie. Whatever you want to say, but it's not a chick flick. It's just a funny movie. So that's my that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And
Pussy.
I know. I'm sure.
You want
Oh,
to change your tampon
I'm
next
gonna.
time?
I will guarantee you that my friend
How about a
Colton
sweaty wad of
is gonna.
cash?
Yeah, a big sweaty wad of money.
You make me want to be a better
Better
man.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
they're just
sure my
great
friend
movies.
Colton will comment about this, and he's.
Oh, does he issue the man card for everybody? I forgot.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he
Shots
does.
fired.
Yeah, he does.
Oh man.
Any anyway,
Well,
that's
Colton, we
I
look
wanted.
forward to hearing from you. Or Woody. That's weird calling you Colton. I'm
I
sorry,
know,
Woody.
I know, but that's all I got, buddy.
No, that's good. I'm good to end there. Are you good?
Yeah,
All right. Well, let's try and pick this up in a week or two. But on that note, to all of our listeners out there, we appreciate you sticking with us. Please let us know If there's anything you'd like us to change, whether it's duration, volume, topics, if there's something you'd like us to cover, a movie you think we should see, a game we should be watching, anything like that, feel free to share. But we appreciate you sticking with us. So be safe, be smart, make good choices. And on that note, peace out. Love you, Dad.
You, buddy.
Bye bye.
Bye.